presenting sponsor for Socially Democratic is Dunn Street. Dunn Street is a campaign agency that specialises in community organising. We only work with people and organisations who want to build power to make the world a better place. And if you want to create change in your world in 2026, then hit us up at dunnstreet.com.au. A special shout out to all of our Patreon members. If you want to join those wonderful supporters of our podcast and financially support our show so we can continue to produce great episodes every week, then we encourage you to click on the link in the show notes and subscribe to join the Patreon community of Socially Democratic. And finally, today's episode is brought to you by Maurice Blackburn Lawyers. For over a century, Maurice Blackburn has stood up for fairness, championing the rights of everyday Australians and shaping landmark legal reforms. Today, they're harnessing new technologies to make justice more accessible, more efficient, and more responsive to the needs of modern Australia. All right, let's get on with today's episode.
We are taping this one on a Saturday afternoon on the lands of the Gadigal people. And we're in Sydney at the New South Wales Labor Conference as part of the Fringe program. Give yourselves a round of applause. Hello, Sydney. And for our people at home that will be listening to this recording, if you hear this hum of noise in the background, that is the sound of democracy. My name is Stephen Donnelly. I'm the host of Socially Democratic, and we want to welcome you all to our live recording of our 359th episode of Socially Democratic. And for those of you that are not here at the Fringe today, what we're going to do is we're going to explore what the New South Wales Labor Conference looks and feels like. And to help me do that, I've got some special guests that I need to introduce, starting with Alison Byrnes, who's the federal member for Cunningham, who was elected in 2022.
2022, that's right.
And before she was elected to our nation's parliament, she spent over 30 years working in the Illawarra community and previously served as the chief of staff to the former member Sharon Bird. So would you please welcome Alison to the podcast?
Thank you.
Rosie Ryan came up through the trade union movement as a lead organiser for the CPSU, and she now is a National Assistant Secretary at the National Secretariat and has previously appeared on Social Democratic in our 2023 New South Wales Election Weekly Recap episode. So, Rosie, welcome back to the pod.
Yay!
Todd Pinkerton is the Director of Campaigns and Strategy at Unions New South Wales. Prior to that, he worked at the TWU and for Senator Tony Sheldon, but he made his real mark when he secured a regular appearance on Social Democratic for our monthly mailbag episode. Would you please welcome Todd Pinkerton back to the show? So this is actually my very first New South Wales Labor Conference, and I was just thinking last night, is this the most non-New South Wales Labor thing to do, to discuss internal party matters with a Victorian and then record it? Yeah. We live in strange times. And in honour of the New South Wales branch, although it's got a bit warm now, I was wearing the official colours of the New South Wales branch, yellow and blue. Anyone get that reference to the 1990s? No, okay, right. Way too obscure, sorry. We had the General Secretary, your General Secretary, Dom Offner, on the pod a few weeks back, and he said that this conference is like no other on the Labor Party calendar. And I want to ask our guests today what this conference means to you. And I'll start with you, Alison, because I think you're the veteran delegate of this panel. What does coming to this conference mean to you now compared to when you first came to this conference?
Yeah, well, I first started coming to conference. It was so long ago, I can't remember which year it was. It was either 1990 or 1991. So I was working at party office back then with John Delabosca was the secretary, Bob Carr was the opposition leader, and also Anthony Albanese was the assistant general secretary. So over the years, I've seen a lot of conference debates, and actually going back to those early conferences, I think it was a lot more confrontational than what we've seen this morning. It was, I think, a lot fiercer than what we've seen so far today. But certainly when the Prime Minister was here at his first conference as Prime Minister, he mentioned the change in reception. Like back when he started coming to conference in 1983, they used to turn the mics off. on him. So he certainly didn't get that reception in I think he came back in 2022 when he was elected Prime Minister. So very different reception for Albo. But I remember coming here and seeing the fierce debates, hearing Bob Carr speak and being so impressed by the way he debated, he cared about our community, and also being a little bit in awe of his staff as well. I've had a lot to do with Carr's staff over the years and the way that they cared about people too. But coming in here today, I still really appreciate the camaraderie, the friendship. Even though there can be a fierce debate on the floor, most people still end up at the Covent Garden singing karaoke afterwards. So that camaraderie, I think, is one of the most important things of conference.
Thanks, Alison. Rosie, what does it mean to you to be a delegate? Were you a delegate as a union delegate? Like, is that your first experience at the conference?
I would have been involved in the party for years before I came to New South Wales Conference, and I would have first come with my union. I could not tell you what year. But I think for me, it's a big family reunion. Like, the people here, like, you've fought wars together, you've been out on campaigns in marginal seats, you've been through things, you know about people's lives, what's going on for them. The ones that I'm most excited to see each year are our country members who travel from all over the regions. They're often in real tiger country where they're really fighting the good fight in places where Labor does not get many votes. And, you know, the delegates all down the South Coast as well who I've campaigned with on many campaigns, and we've ended up winning some pretty historic battles as well. So it's red all the way up from the Victorian border. But seeing all of those people all in one place is really powerful, and seeing the conviction that means people keep fighting year in, year out to get Labor delivered, but also to kind of see the change in the party and the party's position as well is really special.
Todd, Alison just touched on what I think is some of the traditions of the conference, and talking to you over the years, you've always talked up this conference as being a conference that has great tradition steeped into it. Just give, for an outsider's perspective, give us a bit of an insider view as to what are some of these great cultural traditions that the party has around conference.
Well, just to build on what Rosie was saying, I always view the conference like this big family reunion, right? And just like any family reunion, there's lots of traditions. You know, there's the classic fights you always have when you get together with family. There's which we call the rules debate here in New South Wales, which we always open because you want to open with some of the best of the fireworks. But there's some unique things about it. Like, I don't think there's any other conference in the country, political or otherwise, that has this, you know, the chairs facing each other, a lectern right in the centre. Like, I spoke just about an hour ago on the floor. It's pretty daunting to stand in the very middle of 800 delegates with another couple hundred over the top. Like, that's a uniquely New South Wales thing. There's all the other stuff. There's the joke every year, we're going to try something different for dinner. We're all going to go to a Chinese restaurant. Like, that hasn't happened before. There's the fun with the badges, the credentialing. It is truly, there's something very comforting sometimes about coming back. Even if you are coming back to move a big amendment that's going to get voted down and you're going to speak in flames, you get to do it amongst friends. And it is the purest example of, like, the McKell model, the bend, don't break. We come together, we have a fight, we vote it out, and then we all leave this room united around a shared platform and a shared sense of purpose. And that's our unique strength, and it's absolutely on display at every part of the conference. Also, it's a great chance to go have beers with people we haven't seen in like a year and a half or 2 years. So,
which I'm looking forward to doing tonight. I've made my own lists as an outsider, my own observations of the conference, and I've broken them up into 3 categories because, as anyone who listens to the show regularly knows, I like categories. And my 3 categories are things that New South Wales Labor can keep and I don't want, things that I want to steal and take back to Victoria, or they should do another, and ones that actually are the same. That happens in New South Wales and it happens in other conferences, right? So the things that you can keep. I don't want a 10-minute musical introduction for the leader's speech. That seemed to have gone forever and ever and ever. Like, I think it literally ended about 5 minutes ago. So you can have that one. The things I'll steal. Hosting it in a beautiful building with central to public transport and in the heart of the city. I know that sounds like, well, why wouldn't you do that? But ours is in the boondocks, and it's ridiculous. It's an absolute shithole. It's such a shithole. They've actually knocked it down, and we can't have it there anymore. And I reckon the secretary probably still said, "Could we have it in the rubble? Is that okay?" That's how bad it is. Yes, to your point, the floor layout is I've never seen that before. It's like a democratic Thunderdome, and you've all got to have a good hard look at each other, literally, for 2 days. I love that. And the pre- and post-conference social activities as well. We just don't do that in Victoria. It's not a thing we do, and I think it's great that you guys do that. The things I found are the same. Passionate speeches from the floor that are on topics that are not necessarily related to the motion at hand. Your rules debate this morning, we're talking about things that in my mind aren't associated with rules, but it was everyone getting up and having a bit of a rant. That's great. I think we do that everywhere. Another one, which is a concept that may not be familiar to you, what's not my idea, it actually was created by my former field director, Claire, which is called man on phone. Yeah, normally a young male in their mid-20s in an ill-fitting suit, clipboard, always on the phone looking stressed and trying to be important. That's called man on phone. That is everywhere, at every conference I've seen. There was a lot of man on phone today. We'll know when we're reaching equality, when we'll start to see more women on phone as well. That's a goal we should all strive for. And then also the understaffed coffee cart is something that happens at every conference as well, that then leads to big queues. So these are my takeaways I've got from the conference so far. Let's talk about the mechanics and why this conference matters. And I want to go to Rosie, to you first. Talk to us about the ways in which the membership across the state can get their voices heard in this conference. Because often there's a bit of I guess we outsiders probably view that there isn't democracy in our party, but it truly is. And I want to get a sense from you about how such a big organisation and their views can be brought physically into this space.
So there are 800 delegates here, but there's so many more people outside of this conference who contribute to the debates that are happening on floor. So a debate that you might be seeing happen or a motion someone's getting up and speaking to, there may have been hundreds of branches all over the place that have debated and moved those motions to add strength to it. There may be community campaigns being run, connections with other progressive groups outside of the party through the union movement that feed into that. It might be something that's been just recently in the lead up to conference. It might be something that's gone for years or decades to really give power to what's happening on the floor. Things don't just come out of nowhere. There's campaigning and real strategy that goes into achieving things at this conference floor and actually shaping the party's platform and position. And there are so many people that never step foot inside a conference that play a critical role in it. Often people are also getting involved in groups like the Labour Environment Action Network, Lean, like Rainbow Labour, who do a really good job at bringing people together with shared values and shared aims and helping them really organise the change in the party.
Todd, to you, Dom Offner said on the pod the other week about this tripartite model, which I'd never heard of before, talking about the parliamentary party, the rank and file, and the unions, and when they're all working together, the party works and the conference works. And when one of them gets sidelined, that's when you start to see things fall apart. Does that mean something to you? Is that a viewpoint you share with Dom?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what Dom's describing is what we call the McKell Model, which was this idea that if the rank and file, the parliamentary party and the union movement could come together around an issue and we were shared stakeholders in the success, we would go a lot further. And that would mean that sometimes we would have political pragmatism. It meant making sure we had community appeal, but we also were always staying true to our values. And we've seen examples where when one of those three dynamics or one of those three stakeholders tries to sort of take the lot and push the others out, the whole system falls apart. And famously, there have been New South Wales Labor conferences that have not gone particularly well. There are ones where people have not been happy with the outcome. There are ones that there's certain big ones. It was before my time, but electricity privatisation in the former New South Wales Labor government was one of those examples. And it's actually about the fact that conference is the ultimate supreme decision maker. Because if you can't take your view to the floor of conference and win, it's probably not a very good idea. And that's kind of the whole premise behind this model. And there's something very unique about the fact that, there's 800 odd delegates. A rank and file delegate from Parks has just as much say as a party officer with respect to voting on the day. Like there's that one member, one vote. We do have a dual delegate situation, so because we don't have enough chairs. But the idea is that it's so enfranchising a democracy in this room. And it brings all these various stakeholders and parts of the party together. And we have to form a view and we have to walk out of here with a platform. There's something really good about that.
Alison, I get a sense, picking up on the comments that Rosie said before about country delegates, in the 24 hours I've been here, there seems to be a cultural emphasis about the importance of the country delegation. I'm assuming being from the Illawarra, you're regarded as regional, right? That's not.
We're definitely regional. I'm very proud of it.
Just give us an experience from a sense of how that's important and why that is important for this conference. What's unique about that?
Yeah, well, definitely for my region, I come from the Illawarra. A lot of coal mining, steel making, manufacturing. So making sure that we have the policies that support that. And like going back to the 80s where Bob Carr first warned of climate change, and then in Julia Gillard's first speech to New South Wales Conference, she talked about forming the clean energy future. And that is now so vital for my region to make sure that we are transitioning when it comes to jobs, creating jobs of the future. Just this week, we awarded $45 million to Sakona Batteries, who make next generation batteries. So making sure, like with our Future Made in Australia policy, which comes from the floor of conference, and also with IR as well, supporting those workers that work in those industries is really important as well. So making sure we've got those things being debated on the floor. And just further to Rosie's point as well, like every branch can send through a motion to conference, and you would have seen that very big, thick conference book. That means that branches have a great say here on the conference floor as well. So it is important that regions like Parks, regions like the Illawarra do have their say in putting forward policies that help advance their regions, protect jobs in their regions, and also protect their people in those regions as well.
Oh, can I ask the panel, I'm just going to make this question up, about dissent and how we manage dissent? Because the Labor Party is a broad church, and we have our blues. But what do you think this conference does well to ensure that there is a diverse set of opinions that get an opportunity to be expressed and put and debated, but ensure that if it goes to a vote or, there are winners and there are losers, but then we can move past that and continue to work together? Because we shouldn't take that for granted. Other political parties really grapple with this. The Greens, this is playing out in Melbourne right now. They are ripping themselves apart over a bunch of issues, right? Whereas, we've been around for 150 odd years, so I guess we've had a bit more experience at splits. What are we doing here, particularly in New South Wales, is ensuring that you're keeping the show together? Maybe, Rosie, I'll go to you first, and then we'll move through the panel.
Yeah, I mean, some of the debates on conference floor can be really hard and really affecting, and if things don't go the way you want them to, it can take a bit to recover from. I think what unites, Labor Party members and people that come to this conference is that we know that Labor governments are better for Australians, and we know that Labor is the vehicle to deliver the change that we want. And sometimes that does not happen in the way that we want, or they don't get there as fast as we want in terms of the positions we want them to take. But we band together, we reassess. If it's something we want to continue pushing, you can keep pushing on it. Like a lot of the fights had on this conference floor, like Todd mentioned privatisation. Labor was privatised the electricity system. There's been some bad things happen at this conference that have been fiercely fought. And then, look at the Minns government and look at what they're doing in terms of bringing the Northern Beaches Hospital back in-house, in terms of really standing proudly against privatisation and undoing a lot of that damage. So I think coming to these spaces, and as a young activist and lefty coming into here and getting really disillusioned and wanting to tear up my party card after some really hard debates, having some older people in the party say, hey, we've been here before and we've kept fighting and eventually we've won. It was always what got me through, and I think that is the case for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think Rosie's right, and it's not letting perfect get in the way of progress. That's what I always think about as a legislator, as a member of parliament. Do we always do as much as I would like right now today? Not always, but we are making progress. Like, for example, when I first got elected, I couldn't find a bulk billing clinic in my electorate. We now have 26. Is it all of them? No, but we've got 26 fully bulk billing clinics, and it's working towards those things that represent our good Labor values. You might not get everything you want or need today, but it's making sure we are working and we are making things better. And we, like with climate change, That has been a debate that's been going on since 1988 here in this hall, with Bob Carr first speaking about it. And only today are we getting to 50% renewables in the grid, thanks to the fabulous work of Chris Bowen and Tim Ayres and the Prime Minister, really funneling their ideas and real change, developing clean energy economies around the country. So while you might not get everything you need today, it is making progress and not letting perfect get in the way of progress and bringing disillusionment, I think.
Todd, as a representative of the union movement, do you get everything you want each year?
Almost certainly not, no. As I always say, if you got everything you asked for in a negotiation, you didn't ask for enough. Thinking about how we use like when there is debate or there's conflict within the party and it plays out at conference, how we move forward. I'm always reminded of that line that, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And there's a real sense, I think, at conference that if we can all move, like you may put up something, it may not get up, but have you created a new debate? And when the next time you come to conference, there's more delegates in support of it. That happens all the time. I've watched issues that were voted down now are the law, and often it's about the various parts of the party playing their role. The way the left will try and advocate a forward agenda on it, the way country delegates always remind us about we can't just govern for the immediate surrounds of the conference, the way unions bring up their issues. There's a real tension sometimes, particularly in environmental politics, right, between taking action and also the jobs that are on the line there. We're the only party that tries to find a way that both sides win and that we get a way through, while other parties look at a way at jettisoning any kind of support on their way through. And I think there's something very uniquely Labor about that, and it's about our history as being founded by unions. Because unions are not, as a movement, we are progressive because we are the collective expression of working people, because we have decided collectively to take action. It may mean you have more power in a collective than you'll ever have on your own. And so we have this sort of always operating thesis that if we can all come together, we can all be collective in our action, we're going to get a lot more outcomes than some of the other political parties who would much rather yell and scream and demand that things be done tomorrow. Well, they're not the ones writing the laws. They're not the ones changing the country. They're not the ones with historic election victories like Labor.
You guys are 9 months out from a state election, and the Premier, once he finally got to the stage, made a really important address, and I want to get reflections from the three of you about his remarks and what were the ones that jumped out at you. If I can go to you, Alison, first of all, what were the highlights for you in terms of what the Premier spoke about today?
Yeah, it was certainly, Min's opened with something that I've actually written down, which was democracy, freedom, fairness and hope. And certainly everything that he went through in his speech, and certainly the building of the trains in New South Wales was a huge hit on the conference floor, but also going through some of the changes that they've done around hospitals and building a better New South Wales, securing New South Wales' future. And just looking around the hall at some of those signs that were there, I don't know if any of you saw them, but at the state and federal level, more homes for New South Wales, cheaper medicines, $50 weekly toll cap. There is a host of different things, and that's only a small part of them. And there's about 30 different things up and around the hall that both state and federal Labor have done. And looking at Chris Minns today, talking about plans for the future going into next year's state election, I felt hope. Certainly, he's brought that up at the very beginning. And, it was a really good speech. I thought that set a clear agenda, but also addressed all of the things that New South Wales Labor has done as well.
Todd, there was a real emphasis on job protection and job creation in the speech. What did you make of the remarks by the Premier?
I support the remarks about job creation and job security. I think the Premier's given us, I think, today a highlight of the messaging that we'll be taking forward going into the election next year. Like, if we are not for dealing with the insecurity in the labour market, if we are not for bringing jobs to New South Wales, if we are not for putting our taxpayer dollars into domestic manufacturing, if we're not for young people getting a go as apprentices, then what would a Labor Party be for? And that is the thing that we can do that no other party can do on the space come March next year. The Liberals will talk about lowering costs through sending manufacturing offshore, and One Nation will talk about bringing back jobs that they have no intention of actually doing. Only Labor can actually find that sweet spot, that pragmatic, progressive approach. And I think the Premier did it. He flew the flag today for all of us to go, like, we're going to leave this conference and go back to our branches. We're going to go back to our communities. We're going to talk to our neighbours about what we heard. I think he gave us the message grid, right? I think we've got the strategy out pretty clear. We're going to be for jobs. We're going to be for jobs everywhere. We're going to be for people who need someone to be for them.
Rosie, I know you're actually flat out doing your actual job today. I don't know if you got a chance to catch the Premier's remarks. Was there anything that if you did hear anything, was there anything that stood out for you?
Yeah, I did catch the Premier's speech. It's an important one. And I think, a New South Wales conference like this one, that is the last one before the next election, is always really significant. And that speech really kind of sets out what we'll be hearing a lot in the coming months. It made me excited to campaign for Labor and feel very good about being Labor. And I think particularly that announcement about building trains here is a really important one that I think will have a lot of resonance in our community. And look, actually just like bricks and mortar, building more housing, delivering on those reforms is going to be really important to people as well.
It's remarkable that we've gone 25 minutes in a podcast in this current political climate and not mentioned One Nation. But let's do that. The Premier, his remarks positioned Labor against this sort of fear-based policy and had made a big defence of multiculturalism and obviously publicly supported our Muslim brothers and sisters. And I feel like this is a real clear pushback against what we've been hearing out of Pauline Hanson and One Nation over the last month or over her entire career. I want to go to you first, Alison, from your experience on the ground down in the Illawarra. What are you seeing from the community? Because all this polling is telling us that after each new poll, One Nation's vote is either holding or increasing. And this is at a state level and at a federal level. Just give us a sense of what's happening on the ground in the Illawarra.
Yeah, well, what I've seen on the ground in the Illawarra, as I've been out and about in the community, we've spent a lot of time in Canberra, but when I have been back in the Illawarra, certainly I think people are coming up and grabbing me and saying, you're doing a really great job. And it's almost like they want to give me a hug and say it's going to be okay. So I've seen a lot of that support come through from the community. And I think maybe I'm being a little too hopeful, but I think it's starting to change. I think people are actually seeing Pauline Hanson as a real chance and getting a little bit scared about that. I know I certainly am, but I think people out in the community, they like a bit of grievance politics. They like to kick the PM a little bit. But once she becomes a real force, I think that does scare a lot of people as well. So when I've been out and about, people are much more vocal about coming up to me and saying, you're doing a great job, Albo's doing a great job. And that gives me a little bit of hope that people are starting to go, whoa, this One Nation thing is getting a little bit out of hand. And Premier Minns today said that we're not going to meddle in the politics of fear. And I think that was a really good, strong message for party members as well.
There's a debate going on right now about how do we handle One Nation. We talked about it on the last episode. David Feeney had very strong views about the Get Up stunt that they did at the National Press Club. I don't know what the answer is. I'm just interested. I know you and I have talked about it both privately and on the show, but as we go through each of these months and this vote still holds up, what do you think? How do we approach bringing some of these voters back into the Labor fold?
Yeah, I think it starts with asking the question of why are people being drawn to One Nation all of a sudden? I don't think that Pauline's she's not radically changed any of her positions. I don't think she's become a particularly more polished politician by any measure. There's definitely a more operationally, she's getting better. I think they're like the operations behind One Nation. There's some really interesting reporting about who might be behind and how some of that campaigning is being done. But I think we have to remind ourselves that I know it's very tempting in the Labor movement to sort of decry many One Nation supporters as being driven entirely by racism or entirely by fear of migrants. There's definitely some element to some of that, and that's definitely part of the politics that One Nation likes to put up. But in my mind, it's being driven by people seeking empowerment. It's people seeking an ability to demonstrate that they want to be heard, they need to be heard, because they're feeling a bit left behind by the political class, or they're feeling left behind by the market and by the economy. And particularly in a really escalating cost of living crisis that's being driven by global factors that we don't have a lot of control over. Like, we can't set the international price of petrol. We got some control over what's happening on electricity. And interest rates are going to be reflecting what's happening on inflation. So there's this material concern that is driving it. And I think we have to be able to find a way for us to speak to that. I think the Premier did a good job of that today. And if I was a betting man, which I can be occasionally, I'm going to bet that Albo is going to have a good answer on this tomorrow as well, I would suspect. I think his instincts are probably going to be right on this as well, about trying to find a way to get to that material concern. The only thing I do think is a bit of hope for us all, and this came out on the pod the other day, One Nation has been operating in a bit of a vacuum. While Labor's been out prosecuting what's happening on CGT and on negative gearing changes, while the Libs are sort of attacking each other and the Nationals are fading into existence, One Nation's kind of been getting a bit of a free run. But once we saw actually people start to put the messaging back to them out of what happened at the press club, the more Pauline is putting on the record the things that she stands for, you're starting to see some change in the polls. So I think there's some green shoots in that for us. But I think it is also going to require us to be really disciplined about the message. I also think it's going to mean, and this should come as no surprise to people who are union members, we're going to have go have conversations this election with people who do not agree with us or you do not agree with. And you're going to have to start from a place of maybe there's something that we shared believe in, even if we don't agree about the policies, but we have some shared belief. Because we have more in common with any One Nation voter than any One Nation voter is going to have in common with Jenna Reinhardt. I think that's a place that we can start with.
Alison, I'll go back to you. Give us a bit of the World Cup right now, the referees have all got the headpiece and you can actually see on the ground. Just give us a bit of a literal through the lens. What's it like on the chamber floor in the federal parliament at the moment for the Libs and the Nats, watching their primary vote just evaporate? Like, I know that we're tying ourselves up in knots about One Nation, and we should, right? Because we're winners. We want to win, right? But just give our audience today a little bit of Schadenfreude in terms of how are the Libs looking. I mean, think about this. Since Angus Taylor was elected leader, their primary's fallen from 24 to 17%. Like, they rolled a leader because their primary was too low, and it's got even lower. How do they look right now? You catch them in the hallway or at Eddie's or Aussies or what's called. What's going on there? What are their faces like?
Some of them you actually feel sorry for. You can see the look of tragedy in their eyes sitting behind that front bench. So some of those back benches, your heart sort of goes out to them because you think, they're doing it tough there. But certainly on the front bench, there's still a lot of aggression. I don't think they've actually learnt their lesson about listening to the public, getting their ideas from out in their constituency, and the level of aggression, and you've seen it particularly over the last fortnight in the Parliament, the tempo has been up. The Speaker's been kicking people out left, right and centre. But the level of aggression, particularly to some of our women on the front bench when they're giving answers, it shows their desperation, I think. And you can sort of see some of their backbenchers, not all of them, but some of their backbenchers looking a little bit despondent, to be honest. But I think for us, the big message is keep listening to your communities and keep delivering for those communities as well.
Okay, what's happening tomorrow? You got to have votes? Is that what we do? What happens tell an outsider what happens at conference tomorrow. What's the big focus, Todd?
There's a huge line at the cafe or the coffee cart, I'd say. There's you probably could get a bottle of Gatorade for about $10 on the black market on the tray on the floor at that point. Because obviously,
and I think the Barocca as well.
The Barocca, the Panadol, yeah. There'll be some fun tonight, I imagine. Delegates will go and socialise. So that's fun. But there's also some big debates. I think the Prime Minister's speaking tomorrow as well. I think another thing that will happen tomorrow that I don't know if they do this in the other states, the life membership presentation. So people who've been a member of the Labor Party for a really long time get to be a member of the Labor Party forever now. And it's a really beautiful moment. And there's often one member selected who's getting life membership who's going to give sort of keynote address. And that's something you never want to miss. It's tear to the eye stuff. It's beautiful.
That's lovely. And what about tonight? What happens tonight? Alison or Rosie?
Well, what we do tonight is basically the factions have their dinner. So the right has one dinner at a Chinese restaurant. I'm not sure. You guys are going to Docklands, I think, aren't you?
Yeah, we are. And we have a dance floor and a DJ, which we do not always have every year. So I'm quite excited.
Cool.
There's nothing like it's like I feel like a conference Labor or union dance floor is quite like a wedding dance floor in that you have many generations together. You have a lot of daggy old classics you can belt out, and everyone's a bit loose. So it should be good.
Actually, just a survey of audience. Raise your hand if you are going to some kind of event tonight. Yeah, okay, radio. Very good. That's good. Raise your hand if this is your very first conference ever.
Nice.
Hey!
Yay.
Round of applause. Good job. Nice one. Now, we're almost out of time. Did you guys come up with questions? Trivia questions?
Todd got the union historian to do his trivia questions. Can I just put that out on the record? He cheated a little bit.
All right, so the theory, what we thought about doing was, me being the outsider, they were going to ask me some questions about, is that right, about the history of this conference and like a trivia question with A, B, C kind of multi-choices, and I've got to work out what I think the answer is, basically.
You want to go first? Yeah. Okay, cool. Yes, Alison, you are correct. I did get some help with my question. Okay. Before it was the New South Wales Labor Party, it was called the Labor Electoral League. That was the name of the party. It had its first conference in 1891. Where was that conference? So I'll give you a couple options. It could have been here, the Sydney Town Hall. It could have been up at New South Wales Trades Hall. It could have been at the Temperance Society. Or it could have been at the offices of the Australian Workers' Union.
Okay, so there's 4 options there.
Yeah. I think this is true. I don't know if it's actually...
Okay, right. Yeah. Process elimination. I can't imagine it was at the Temperance. I don't think that we're the kind of party that would do that. I'm leaning towards the AW office. Where are the AW offices, or where were they?
I don't know.
They're at Granville now. I don't know.
I'm going to say it was at the AW offices.
No, it was at the Temperance Society.
Did anyone know that?
No, I wouldn't. It took forever, and I think they all went to the pub afterwards.
All right. Yeah. Good. They probably never went back, though. All right. Good question. Alison, do you have a question?
Mine's not as good as Todd because I didn't have the union historian on my side, but his was a pretty good question, I will say. But I'm going to say, what year was the Prime Minister's first conference? Was it 1964? I don't think so. 1991, 1983, or 1985?
Okay. When was... Yep.
There we go.
Was it 83?
Yep.
I would have said 85. When was Rats to the Ranks made? The documentary?
90s?
90s? Yeah, okay, right. 83. Wow, he's been around a while.
Good job, Murray.
That's impressive. Well done. Okay, Rosie.
Yeah, Rats in the Ranks was 1996.
There we go.
And many of the characters are still around, and I believe the Prime Minister was briefly in there. So, no, my question is a very easy one given the subject matter of this morning, but what New South Wales Premier announced his resignation on conference floor?
Well, I do know this because I paid attention to the speech. Neville ran. Very good. That's amazing. That's a really interesting thing about this conference is that your actual Premier rocked up and said, I'm done. Yeah. Huge. Okay. Well done, team. We're at the end of our podcast. Before we wrap up, a couple of things. First of all, can I thank our producer, Grace Eyre, for, and as well as the tech staff here at City Town Hall. Really appreciate that. I can also thank New South Wales Labor for having us, and a special mention to Caleb from Sussex Street, who's been helping us get all set up today. Can I thank you guys, our audience, and our Patreon members as well. Thank you so much for coming along, and great to see some familiar faces in the audience too. And can we obviously thank our guests, Todd, Alison, and Rosie as well, for coming on the show today. If you have never listened to Social Democratic, can I encourage you to subscribe? We drop the show every Friday, so subscribe on your favourite podcast app, and tell your friends. Thanks very much, and we'll talk to you all next Friday.
Hey, Social Democrats. Thanks for listening. Today's episode was hosted by myself, Stephen Donnelly, and produced by Grace Eyre. If you like the show, please rate us and review us wherever you get your podcasts. And if you really like the show, then join our Patreon community for early and ad-free access to each episode. We regularly take questions and comments from our Patreon members, so get in there if you want to have your say. And finally, get all the latest updates and bonus content by following Socially Democratic on our social media channels. The links are in our show notes. See you next Friday.